Donald Trump decided to end the week with a big bit of breaking news, a pardon, but don't worry, it's not Ghislaine Maxwell yet. That's gonna be next week. No, for now, it's that guy. George Santos is getting the commutation of a sentence that he has wanted so badly. And I have a theory as to why Donald Trump did this, something he never seemed interested in doing before. But first, here's how Donald Trump announced it. Obviously, it's a big deal, it's the president, so he just did it on social media as he always does. He says, George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison. I started to think about George when the subject of Democrat Senator Richard Da Nang Dick Blumenthal came up again. As everyone remembers, Da Nang stated for almost 20 years that he was a proud Vietnam veteran, having endured the worst of the war, watching the wounded and dead as he raced up the hills and down the valleys, blood streaming from his face. As always, I think Donald Trump was just watching Rambo. I think he sees something on TV and he thinks it's real life. He was a great hero, he would leak to any and all who would listen. And then it happened. He was a complete and total fraud. He never went to Vietnam. He never saw Vietnam, just like Trump. He never experienced the battles there or anywhere else. His war hero status and even minimal service in our military was totally and completely made up. This is far worse than what George Santos did. And at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican. A point that we will return to. George has been in solitary confinement for long stretches of time and by all accounts has been horribly mistreated. Therefore, I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George, have a great life. Good luck with the scams going forward. Because of course, while we can debate whether the lies that George Santos told, which were many and varied and horrific about every aspect of his life and his family history, including about the Holocaust, he lied about everything. Does Donald Trump know? Is Grandpa so deluded? Does he think that's the problem we have with George Santos, is that he lied? Yeah, no, he lied a lot. He also was a fraud and a con man who stole tons of money from people in any number of different criminal schemes. It wasn't just lies, he defrauded people, including many Republicans, in a ton of different ways. He wasn't just a lovable scamp, he was a willful and repeated felon. And Donald Trump either doesn't know that, in which case, basically, I guess this commutation was brought to you by AutoPen, since he doesn't even know what he's signing these days, or he just wants to lie and pretend that he doesn't understand that he's an actual criminal. And by the way, who the hell was bringing up Blumenthal in any of this? They came up with that. They think that that was a cool little cover story to apologize for what George Santos did. But the money thing here is, sure, maybe he lied a bunch, and maybe he's a fraud, but he voted for me. And so I guess he gets a little bit of what Donald Trump has, which is he's above the law because he has the right politics and he supports the right people.
Yeah, so, okay, first of all, why are we talking about Richard Blumenthal? When we're releasing George Santos, what does one have to do with the other? Just such a random line of attack. I had to commute George Santos's prison sentence for massive fraud against usually Republican voters, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I don't like rando Democratic senator from Connecticut. All right, brother. I mean, like to me, that reads weak sauce, right?
Yeah.
So second of all, you had to bring up Richard Blumenthal because he lied about his service in Vietnam. But he was actually in the military, right? So whereas Donald Trump didn't go to Vietnam and lied about it, and we all know it, Commander Bone Spurs, right? They asked him which foot did you have the bone spurs in, and he couldn't remember / didn't know because he never had bone spurs. They tracked down the letter. The guy who wrote the letter was a doctor who got a nice handout from Trump's dad, et cetera. So like you have the nerve, and he does this all the time. So like something terrible that he's done, he'll criticize somebody else for it. Next thing you know, he'll be like, I can't believe Richard Da Nang Dick Blumenthal set up a fake university. No, brother, you set up a fake university, okay? And okay, so what's the real reason that he's releasing Santos? First of all, he loves people who commit fraud. He just has a natural like affinity. If he has empathy at all for anyone, it's people who committed fraud.
A lot of his pardons have been for frauds.
No, and yeah, this is not just random attack, guys. Look it up. Like the great majority of his pardons outside of January 6th are all for white collar criminal fraud, okay? Oh, you rip people off. Get him, let him go, come on, let him go, right? And what has Trump done for most of his life? And a lot of those guys either gave to his meme coin, which is a flat out bribe, right? But there's no rules left, right? And some of them gave him campaign contributions, which by the way is very normal. Bill Clinton did that for Mark Rich, etc. So that sucks, but is more closer to what a lot of politicians do. Okay, and lastly on that stuff, he's talking about lies. Oh, by the way, sorry, one more thing about the fraud. He released all these guys that had paid him off. But to me, the reason why I say I think he does it out of empathy is I don't know that Carlos Watson gave him any money or any way, but who knows these days? But he's the guy who used to run Aussie Media, which was another progressive news outlet, media outlet, right? And they did fraud against Goldman Sachs. Oops, you do not mess with Goldman Sachs. Go straight to prison. That's the only thing you ever get put away for in white collar crime world, right? But even so, Trump pardoned or commuted his sentence, I forget which one, of Carlos Watson, a black Democrat who ran a progressive media site, but he did white collar fraud. Yeah, boy, go.
Loves it.
It's weird. It's weird and it's not weird because that's his career, right? That's his. He feels like but for the grace of God, go I. Okay, so that's part of the reason that I think he let Santos go. But I think the second reason is I'm really worried about it, and I think might be more true, and that's the one that John came up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of have two. I'll throw out the one that we'll see. I think partially you normalize ever crazier pardons to make the Ghislaine Maxwell one a little bit more palatable, I think. But I think the bigger one is the dude has got Marjorie Greene like snapping at his heels for weeks now. He doesn't like that. She's getting all this press because the media, first of all, it's interesting to see a MAGA person criticizing Donald Trump, and they want to lift that sort of person up. So she's getting more press than she's ever gotten in her life. And what has she been asking for months and months? George Santos to be pardoned. She loves George Santos. It's actually one of, look, he's a terrible guy, but her devotion to her buddy in Congress or whatever is one of the most human things about her or whatever. So she's been pushing for that. And it's free. Donald Trump can just do it. What does he care? He literally does not care about George Santos, aside from respecting the hustle of another fraudster. So he gives that to Marjorie Greene. Maybe Marjorie Greene backs off a little bit. Maybe they had a little talk, maybe a little phone call.
No, but combine those two things like you told me during the break. Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, what, you considering Ghislaine Maxwell pardon? You crazy? When you haven't even pardoned George Santos. But he just did pardon George or commuted George Santos' sentence. Is that a preview of, well, since I did Santos, golly gee, I guess I should do Ghislaine Maxwell as well. And you know why I'm doing that? Because of Dick Durbin and his record on Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right? So, So that, John, that'll be an excellent prediction.
Yeah.
If it turns out he does Ghislaine Maxwell, but I don't think he realizes the fury that will come if he pardons Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
Like maybe he has to do it because of compromat or whatever that Israel's got on him. I don't know. Okay. Oh no, you can't say that. Yeah, I just did. So hashtag suck it. So yeah, you were gonna say something.
The only other thing, I assume you are right and people will freak out, but I would say we're now 2 months into, he had a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. He sent his personal lawyer, which is super weird, personal lawyer. And then as soon as it was done, they send her to a minimum security resort prison. It has been 2 months. Where's the fury? Where's the uproar? Why are people, they haven't had to explain it. There's they just did that. And there's been no pushback.
No, there's been a little pushback, but I get it. She's it was low level enough. It was not outrageous enough in people's opinions. And a lot of them don't even know the details. I mean, we just covered the story earlier this week about how she's running that prison now like Pablo Escobar. She's she gets to roam around at night, no one else does. They stuff people in the prison. She gets to do all these meetings. She runs the place.
Kind of like Epstein got in his sweetheart deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But John, I'm telling you, man, tons of the right wing are catching on. For the left wing independents, we all get it already. And that's a giant chunk of the country. And now when the portion of the right wing that's caught on also joins on. So look, we'll see. I hope we don't see, but my guess, I'm not even guessing it. I'm just saying, if Trump does a pardon or commutes a sentence of Ghislaine Maxwell, no, there will be a fury.
Yeah.
And the right wing will definitely join that fury, because then it's going to become obvious. Look, guys, I think the number one problem at this point with Israel is obviously that they're committing a genocide, and they haven't stopped at all. They're still killing people. They bombed Lebanon today because they get to bomb every country anytime they want, right? Or they kill someone inside Lebanon. They constantly attacking their neighbors. They never stop. They're trying to get greater, et cetera, right? So that's obvious. Since there's a genocide, that's the number one problem. But the number two problem, the problem that bothers the right wing even more, is their control of this government. Okay, and that is now becoming more and more apparent every day.
Yeah.
And you let Ghislaine Maxwell go, and this thing's gonna blow.
Yeah, and my final point, I think it's totally natural that we immediately jump to what's gonna happen next with this. But I think we should also stop for just a second to acknowledge that this is insane. George Santos is a almost completely unrepentant fraudster and massive liar. He defrauded the American people, he defrauded tons of individual people, and the president is just going to release this guy. He just now gets to go scam other people, maybe run for office again. And along the way, he insults a Democrat and then basically says, hey media, you know why I'm releasing him? Because he voted with me. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
And that's it, he can just do that.
So my last word on it is, you're totally right, John, about don't let this one go. This one sucks too. Look, guys, he didn't get convicted for lying. If that was the case, almost all of Congress would be in jail, right? So no, he got convicted for actual fraud against other Americans, ripping them off, stealing their money, putting it in his pocket, in the form that trial took, right? And by the way, it's not like Republican voters were clamoring for it. The overwhelming majority of the Republicans in his district hated him and wanted him out of office.
Yeah.
This is just for the upper class elites who are like, oh, don't worry, if you commit fraud, I'll let you off. If you commit fraud, you'll let me off, or whatever. It's this kind of ass slap football stuff. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene's done a lot of interesting and good things recently. This ain't one of them, right? So pushing for this pardon, but it is what it is. Everybody's different. God bless America. But he was convicted by his fellow citizens of serious crimes. We shouldn't let people off just because they like Donald Trump, or by the way, Joe Biden or Bill Clinton or anyone else. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.